So here's the situation. You want to win your fantasy football league. Here's the problem. Maybe you're busy.
I've been busy.
Maybe you don't know that much about fantasy football because you're new. Maybe you know about fantasy football. You don't know that much about football. Maybe you're in a league with a bunch of really competitive people. Or maybe you're just not that competitive yourself. You need some help. This video is for you. What this video is going to be about is the Cobalt Cadence. This is the weekly schedule you need to go through to make sure you hit all the fundamentals in fantasy football. Cobalt Cadence will help you potentially win your fantasy league with under an hour of work per week. And it's scalable. You can do this for almost as many teams as you want. It might be tough to fit it inside an hour if you get up to about 10 teams, but it's a very efficient way to go about it. You get a pretty good shot at making the playoffs even if you know nothing else about football. You don't even need to watch the games to be competitive if you check the boxes on this list I'm about to give you. And nothing here is unique. I haven't invented any of the individual steps here. This is a greatest hits list I've really compiled here. The cadence is what I'm putting my name on. If you follow the Cobalt Cadence from Box Score Monday all the way to Sneaky Sunday, you'll be successful. So let's get started. The first day of the fantasy week is Box Score Monday. Now, over 90% of the games have been played. Your goal for Monday is to try to just take in information. That's the only thing you can really accomplish on a Monday. Most leagues will make it so that you can't add players on Monday, for the most part. We'll get into that a little bit more. There may be some situations where you can pick up players on Monday besides just not having waivers, and I'll get into that in Sneaky Sunday, because that's really a Sneaky Sunday play. Stick around to the end of the video if you want to know what that is. But your main goal for Box Score Monday is to take in information. It's a better idea in fantasy to go for stats that lead to the points. You don't want to chase touchdowns. You're better off chasing opportunities. Snaps lead to targets or plays designed for player, which lead to touches, which lead to yards, which lead to touchdowns. You don't want to chase touchdowns. What you want to chase is players getting involved with the offense, because then the touchdowns and the yards and the fantasy points will come.
If you build it, you will come.
So that's what you want to look out for when you're going through box scores, is what players are especially getting a lot of targets, what players are getting a lot of work in the offense. You don't need to memorize it all. You just need to get a bit of a flavor for it. That's it for Box Score Monday. It takes about 10 minutes out of your total for the 1 hour for the week. After Box Score Monday is over, we get into Waiver Tuesday. Waiver Tuesday is another 10-minute day. Waiver Tuesday is a day where if you're going to spend time beyond the 1 hour, it's a pretty good day to do it, to do research on what type of players you can add. With the majority of fantasy leagues, players will be locked into waivers for Tuesday, giving everybody a chance to put waiver claims in, competing waiver claims. Either those that made the biggest bids will get the players, or those at the bottom of the standings, whatever the waiver rules of the league are. If you're pressed for time and you need to make some waiver claims, a few things you want to look for here. First of all, you want to look for trends. A lot of fantasy football apps will show which players are being added the most. Those are the players you're going to have to consider. Second of all, you want to look for players on your team that either have injuries or a bad outlook that you may want to consider dropping. Generally, you want to have who the lowest player or two on your team is and who you're going to drop. Then just decide how much risk to put on a player. If you've done a good job of following Box Score Monday throughout the season, you'll have a better idea of what kind of bids you need to put on players in order to actually win their waiver bids if you have a fab system. One strategy you don't want to miss here is you can put in multiple bids all dropping the same player. That way, if you don't get your top free agent, you can get your second free agent and still drop the lowest player in your roster. I've done that a lot, where if I have one running back that I just know I gotta drop him for someone, I'll put in, say, 3 claims, a lot of money for the top choice, a little bit of money for the backup, no money for the safety. The weeks will go by where you don't make any waiver claims for a team either. That doesn't mean you failed a Waiver Tuesday. You don't have to spend money. Waivers are one of the tougher spots to be competitive in fantasy when your time is limited. If you check all the boxes in the Cobalt Cadence, you'll do okay. After Waiver Tuesday comes Rankings Wednesday. Why is Wednesday significant? Well, expert rankings are typically posted by Wednesday. Some websites will post them by Tuesday, but you'll get most of the rankings and thus the consensus rankings by Wednesday. So what's your goal for Rankings Wednesday? You want to look at what free agents, first of all, are available and see if any of the free agents are ranked highly. In some cases, you want to pick players up because they're ranked more highly than players you have that you're not holding on to for a special reason. The second thing you want for Rankings Wednesday is to start to get a feel for who you're going to start in your lineup. Some of your players are going to have injury concerns, and they're not going to be reflected in the rankings to say, if he's healthy, put him here. If he's injured, put him down here. You'll see some players will just have a wide range of rankings depending on what different experts are assuming is going to happen with that injury. With that caveat, you just want to look for, say, like, all right, if the average expert were to start my players this week, who would they put in there? Once you're done with that, you can basically go to bed on Rankings Wednesday. When you wake up, it's going to be Trading Thursday. To be honest, at this point, most of your work is done. Rankings Wednesday is a 10-minute day. Waiver Tuesday was a 10-minute day. Box Score Monday was a 10-minute day. Trading Thursday is a 5-minute day. There's always a Thursday night game now in the NFL. Here's your goal for Thursday. First off, this is the last chance you might have to make trades that'll go through in time for Sunday's games. A lot of leagues will put a trade review period in of 2 days, either for a commissioner review or for league votes. So that means if a trade is accepted on Thursday, it's going to sit on Friday and Saturday and then come through on Sunday morning. Make those calls if that's what you're going to do. Second thing you need to look for on Thursday is to set your lineup. Make sure to set a reminder to check this at least a half hour before the Thursday night game. But don't go more than an hour and a half before, because that's in general when players are going to be declared active or inactive for the game. You check at 5 p.m. Eastern on a Thursday, you've gone too early. You got to check back in at 7 o'clock, 7:30 or so. Probably 7:30 to be safe. And you want to set your lineup with special consideration for the flex. If you're going to play a player on Thursday night, don't play him in your flex spot if you can avoid it. The reason for this is simple. If you're going to play a running back on Thursday and you play him in your flex spot, now you're forced into, say, 2 running backs, and maybe your league has 2 receivers that you got to play Sunday. You would play that running back in a running back slot. Now you have more flexibility. You could play 2 running backs, or you could play 1 running back and 3 receivers if something happens and one of your players, say, gets hurt in the next couple days. Be aware of that. Try to keep your flex spots as cleaned out as possible to maintain flexibility going into Sunday. And I'll say, if you got 2 players you're considering starting, one of them is a little better, but is potentially hurt and might not play that week, and the other player's playing on Thursday, I like the idea of starting that inferior player just to make sure to get those points. Because sometimes, too, you never know. You might do great. Thursday night games have a tendency to be a little bit swingy. All right, Trading Thursday is done. We got another easy day, a 5-minute day at most. It's Fuggetaboutit Friday.
Sometimes it just means forget about it.
The reason why it's Fuggetaboutit Friday is because not much is going to happen on Friday. You only have 2 goals for Friday. 1, check your team once during the day just to see if there are any injury calls that have been made. In some cases, you'll have surprise additions to the injury report, or players will come off the injury report on Friday. You want to know if that happens. The other thing you want to look at for Friday is just a good check to make sure your alert system is working. A lot of people think that you have to spend a lot of time in fantasy football because you got to check it religiously. If you get a good fantasy football alert system, like I've used Fantasy Life in the past. Once I was pretty sure I was sitting on the John at work.
I come up with all my best stuff in the bathroom at work.
And I got an alert that Kareem Hunt just did a bad thing. And Charkandrick West needed to be added, so I did that. That didn't end up working out great for my fantasy team because I picked up Charkandrick West, and then the guy who would have taken West because he had Hunt ended up taking Justin Jackson and Jalen Samuels, and he beat me in the playoffs. I still remember this. I have an alert system. 5 minutes of Fuggetaboutit Friday are in the books. Now we got another 5-minute day. It's Stretch Run Saturday. This day is going to be a lot simpler early in the season when nothing's going on. Most people that play fantasy football will just either watch college football or just, go apple picking or something. Similar to Fuggetaboutit Friday, but it's Stretch Run Saturday because in the stretch run, so once the college season is over, which is, second week in December usually, you'll start seeing Saturday games for the NFL. And if you're still competitive at that point of the season, you're in the stretch run, you got to remember that. You're going to have players that are going to play on Saturday, so you got to set the lineups in time. Remember to have those reminders in place so that you make your start-sit decisions in the window of about an hour, half an hour to an hour and a half before the game actually kicks off. Early in the season, there will be another concern on Stretch Run Saturday, and it's the London game. They'll be at 9:30 Eastern on Sunday. So what you want to do on Saturday, there's a chance you're going to sleep past 9:30. You need to either set an alarm to go check something or make a decision now for what you're going to do about your London players. And that's the last 5-minute day of the week. Now's the fun day. Well, in some cases, it's the least fun day. So I like playing fantasy football. I don't necessarily enjoy watching for fantasy football players, but that's a different topic. Now we've come to Sneaky Sunday. This is when all the action happens. First thing you have to do for Sneaky Sunday, set reminders, obviously, to set your line, make your lineup decisions throughout the day. You have the London game, you have the 1 o'clock games where you got to check between 11:30 and 12:30. You have the 4 o'clock games when you're checking somewhere between halftime of the 1 o'clock games and 3:30. And you got the night game. Sometimes there's 2 night games, things happen, where you got to check roughly around 7:30 or so for your lineup. You can't miss those windows. Things will happen in the time leading up to 4 o'clock games. You might not be able to do anything about it, but you got to know about it. Second on your list for Sneaky Sunday, check the weather. There's a secret to fantasy football that a few people know about, and you can find great defensive matchups. So if you play with the team defense, pick the teams that are playing in bad weather, especially snow. A lot of times when the rankings come out on Wednesday, maybe you're looking at streaming defenses or kickers. You won't know what the weather forecast is for Sunday, but you'll know Sunday morning. You can make a switch for a defense that's playing in the snow, or say switch away from a kicker that's playing in inclement weather, that's a great time to do that. It won't be reflected in the rankings. It'll sometimes be reflected in the ad drop data and the trends of the morning, which comes to point number 3. Look for the trends of the morning. As players are declared inactive Sunday morning, around 11:30 you'll often see a lot of activity. Certain players will be all of a sudden picked up across fantasy football to replace injured players. If you're on top of this at 11:30, you can get a lot of nice spot starts that way. And here's the last thing you need to do on Sunday. It's not watch football, because that's not necessary. That's not part of the Cobalt Cadence. I encourage you to watch football. No, but the last step on the Cobalt Cadence is to look for the bye week ad. In addition to the weather for defenses, this is one of the secrets. If your league settings allow it, look for players who are currently on bye. You may be able to pick them up late in the day for free, as in they're not on waivers. This might even be true on Monday, which is why I mentioned it for Box Score Monday. The bye week players will usually be available for pickup at least through the Sunday afternoon games. If you pick them up now, then sometimes you can even drop a player that's already played at 1 o'clock. It depends on the settings of the league. You can get ahead of the next week's waiver. So you want to look for players that are on bye that you can anticipate are going to be big pickups. This is going to be especially true in the middle of the season when you have a lot of bye weeks and players that are coming back that aren't necessarily injured. That's probably the least known step in the entire Cobalt Cadence. But there you have it. From Box Score Monday to Sneaky Sunday. If you like this cadence, if you like this schedule, let me know in the comments. If you have any additions you think need to be made to the cadence, again, things that have nothing to do with necessarily watching football or being good at analyzing football, if you think they belong, let me know. If you like content like this, hope you subscribe to the Byron Cobalt YouTube channel. And if you do all this and your team still loses, just remember, we're all going down as fantasy football ship together. It's been a privilege and an honor.